Hello, and good morning. For you to take a second and think about a time you maybe helped one of your friends move into a new house. So you walk in carrying a big stack of boxes, and ask your friend, "Hey, where would you like them? Would you like them over here?" Your friend just looks at you and goes, "All right. Well, can I put them over here?" Your friend responds, and goes, "You then okay? So look, I'm just gonna leave them here then, all right?" And your friend just had an entire conversation with you without saying a word, and you'll be able to understand that. You were able to do this by reading their body language, which today is going to be the subject of my speech. I have been studying body language for the past 7 or 8 years, mostly as a hobby. I've read several books, different studies and articles, and put it to use throughout my daily life. I've used it to help better communicate with the mentally disabled. I've also used it to nail job interviews, and I've also used it to help better adapt my speeches when giving them in public. During the speech, I like to show you the beginning, the history of body language, and two interesting subjects of body language. One is the field of attraction, and the other is some of the most common cultural misunderstandings that we have today. Now, before we dive into the fun stuff, we have to do a quick history lesson in the beginning of body language. Charles Darwin was one of the first people to study body language. In 1872, he wrote a book of expression of the emotions in man and animals. Darwin ended up starting the modern day studies of facial expressions and body language. In the 1950s, studies have found out that in order to get our messages across, 7% of it was actually vocal, 38% of it was tone, and 55% it was nonverbal. Now, it's crazy to think that half of our conversation is based on nonverbal communication. You can honestly see now why so many people get in so many fights about text messages and misunderstanding them and reading the wrong way. Researchers have recorded to this day about 1 million nonverbal signals and about 250,000 facial expressions. Now let's dive into an interesting and controversial field of body language, and that's the body language of attraction and courtship. Let's start with the most common female courtship signal, and that is the hair flip. When a girl's around a guy she likes, this is probably one of the first things she would do to show him that. This can be done with long and short hair very easily. This is done to expose the neck, shoulders, and also what it does is it lifts the arms, which helps release pheromones, so in order to help attract the guy that she newly likes. Now, there's much more signals that women use on gentlemen and courting regularly, but I'm not going to give away all the secrets and tell all the signs just yet. Thank you, ladies, for being such a great sport. Now, some of the most common male courtship signals are, I'm sorry to let you know, guys don't really have any common signals. We usually like to just display power, strength, and our social status. And we usually do this by taking you to nice events, buying you gifts, and just having competitions with other guys. If there's one thing that men have done, is we actually like to prepare ourselves before we approach to you. We'll maybe sit there as we're walking up, we'll fix our shirts, we'll fix our watches, maybe knock off some imaginary dust on our shoulders. That way we can have the best first impression when we meet you. Now let's get into another interesting field of body language, and this one revolves around the common misconceptions and common misunderstandings that body language has in some different cultures. As Americans, we're probably the most biggest offenders when it comes to cultural misunderstandings. In the 1950s, before he was president, Richard Nixon flew to some South American countries to help improve relations with the locals. When he walked out the plane, he gave the American sign of okay to the crowd. Well, the crowd was shocked and stunned by this, and they started hissing and cussing at him, and he didn't know why. Well, come to find out, in the culture, this does not mean okay. That's not one of the first things that comes to the culture's mind. This actually means assholes. Y'all all assholes. So when Nixon was showing this to the crowd, he was basically calling the crowd, y'all all assholes. The next one is the hook 'em horn signal. This is used by Americans to show that they're rooting for the University of Texas Longhorns. Well, in Italy, that is actually a jailable gesture. This gesture means in Italy that other men are actually banging your wife. In 1985, 5 Americans actually got arrested outside of Vatican City because they were jumping up and down and dancing and doing the hook and horns because they just found out their Longhorns just won a big game. So just make sure that you read up on any local cultures before your next trip. In conclusion, we use body language every day. Sometimes you won't even know you're using it. When you get a chance, sit down in the quad at LSU and just watch some of the students walk by and see how they communicate. Even you'll be surprised how much body movement goes into a simple conversation. Well, I hope you all have a great day and good luck to y'all on y'all projects.